The crack of the shot tore through the Chicago night, and I watched, frozen, as my partner Jamal Reed crumpled beside our Jeep, blood pooling beneath him like a cruel shadow. My hand shook, but not from fear. Age and training locked my body into a coil of restraint, my Delta Force instincts screaming to act, to fight, to save him. The officer, Victor Kane, stood over us, his badge glinting under streetlights, his face twisted with a smugness that made my stomach churn. He moved too fast. Kane spat, his voice sharp, but his eyes flickered with something darker satisfaction. I knelt beside Jamal, his 200-pound frame heavy in my arms, his breath shallow, eyes searching mine. "Aisha, don't let this go," he whispered, blood staining his lips. I pressed my scarf to pounds of silk against his chest, my voice low, fierce. "I won't, love. I've got you." But as his hand went limp, I knew this wasn't just a moment. It was a war, and Victor Kane had no idea who he'd just challenged. Aisha Carter, former Shadow 9 operative. A black woman forged in battles he'd never survive. We'd been driving home from a poetry slam at a community center, Jamal's voice still echoing in my mind, his words about hope and healing lifting the crowd. He was 42, a social worker who turned Chicago's South Side kids into dreamers, his laughter a balm against the city's scars. I was 39, my Shadow 9 days behind me, but the vigilance never left. My fingers always grazed my bag zipper, a habit from missions where a second's hesitation meant death. We were 3 miles from our apartment, the air a crisp 65 degrees Fahrenheit. When Kane's cruiser lights flashed, slicing through our joy, Jamal's smile faded, his hands tightening on the wheel. "Stay cool," he murmured, pulling over with the ease of a man who'd faced this too many times. My pulse didn't spike. It steadied, my eyes scanning Kane's partner, Officer Elena Diaz, a rookie whose nervous fidgeting betrayed her unease. Kane approached, his stride predatory, his badge a weapon. "Evening," he said, voice cold, eyes locking on Jamal, faced like he was sizing up prey. "Nice Jeep. Social work pays, huh?" The jab was laced with venom, assuming Jamal didn't belong in that seat. I kept silent, noting Kane's badge 4821 and Diaz's hesitant glance. Jamal's voice was calm, practiced. "Just heading home from an event. Need my ID?" Kane's lip curled. "Slow, pal, no tricks." Jamal reached for his wallet. 5 ounces, visible in the console, but Kane's hand twitched, his voice sharp. I said, "Slow." My gaze caught a flicker above a drone, 90 feet up, its green light blinking. Jamal ran a youth media lab. One of his teens might be filming, a spark of hope in this darkness. Kane's shout was a blade. "Don't move." Jamal froze, hands raised, but Kane's eyes were wild, not with fear but with power. The shot rang out, a single, brutal sound, and Jamal slumped, blood soaking his shirt. I was out of the Jeep, catching him as he fell, his weight heavy, his breath fading. "Aisha," he gasped, his hand clutching mine. I pressed my scarf to the wound, blood warm and relentless. "Stay with me, Jamal," I urged, my voice a lifeline. Kane stepped back, his face pale but defiant. He reached too fast. Diaz muttered, "Victor." He was complying, but her radio crackled, ignored. My eyes locked on Kane, not with tears but with a stillness that made him flinch. I memorized his sharp cheekbones, the sweat on his brow. The drone hummed above, a witness I'd find. Jamal's hand stilled, his eyes dimming, and my heart shattered. But I didn't break. I leaned close, whispering, "I'll make this right, love." Sirens wailed, 2 miles off, but I stayed, blood staining my jeans, 3 pounds of Jamal's life on me. Kane's voice trembled. He moved, but I saw the lie in his eyes. Man who shot, not out of fear, but hate. Diaz shifted, her face pale, torn between duty and truth. I stood, my silence a weapon, heavier than any scream. Kane didn't know I was Shadow 9, trained to dismantle threats bigger than him. But he'd learned in the precinct's interrogation room. The air was stale, lights buzzing like angry wasps. I sat, hands folded, blood dried on my clothes. Detective Paul Grayson, a man with tired eyes, skimmed a file. "No tears, Miss Carter," he said, his tone probing. "Most partners collapse. You're calm." My gaze met his. "Steady. You think strength is guilt. That's your error." He leaned forward. "Kane says." Reed lunged. "Camera's glitchy. Convenient." I didn't blink. Jamal reached for his wallet. "You know it." Grayson's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Doubt flickering later. In our 1,200 square foot apartment, 5 miles from downtown, I powered up my laptop 4 pounds of purpose. I messaged Hawk, a Shadow 9 tech expert, trace a drone. "Chicago, tonight," I typed. Hawk replied, "On it, specs incoming." I headed to Jamal's youth media lab a mile away, walls covered with storyboards and cameras. Maya, a 17-year-old he mentored, greeted me, eyes wet. "He made me believe I could tell stories," she said, hugging me. I squeezed her hand. "He still does." "Were you flying a drone tonight?" She nodded, pulling up 4K footage clear, damning. Jamal's hands up, Kane's aggression. The shot. My throat tightened, but I stayed firm. Back this up, Maya, 3 times. She did, saving it 2 drives, each £1 alone. I dug into Kane's record via Hawkslink. 10 complaints since 2016, 3 for racial bias, all buried. Diaz's name was on falsified reports, her signature unsteady. I found a leaked email, 2 pages. 6 ounces detailing a precinct diversity audit used to justify targeting black drivers. Rage burned, but I focused, encrypting the footage. An email, Jamal's community center a mile away, his mural 25 feet of color, painted by his teens, stared back. I clutched his keychain, 0.2 ounces, and wept. You built dreams, I whispered. Maya found me offering a drive. I want to fight Ms. Aisha. I saw Jamal's fire in her. You will, Maya, stay ready. My silence wasn't defeated, was a blade, sharp and waiting, aimed at Kane in a system that let Jamal bleed. I'd make them see, starting with that drone's truth. The Chicago precinct's interrogation room felt like a trap, its air stale and heavy, the clock ticking past 4 a.m. as I sat, my hands folded on a cold metal table, 5 pounds of steel that seemed to mock my restraint. My jeans were stiff with Jamal's blood, a 3-pound weight of loss I couldn't shed. Detective Paul Grayson leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing as he skimmed a file, his pen tapping a rhythm that grated on my nerves. You're a cool one, Miss Carter, he said, his voice low, probing. Most folks would be a mess after losing their partner. You're steady. I met his gaze, my Shadow 9 training keeping my face unreadable, though my heart churned. With grief and fury, you think composure is a crime, I said, my words sharp but even. That's your bias, not my guilt. Grayson's jaw twitched, a flicker of unease crossing his face, but he pressed on. Kane says Reed reached for something. Body cams conveniently glitchy. What's your story? I leaned forward, my voice a blade. Jamal reached for his wallet. Kane saw his skin and decided that was threat enough. Grayson's pen stilled, but he didn't respond. The silence thick with his doubt. A doubt I knew ran deeper than one officer's light was the system's shield. Polished by years of ignoring truths like mine. I left the precinct at dawn, the city's skyline a gray silhouette against a 60 degrees Fahrenheit sky, my mind a battlefield of strategy and sorrow. In our 1,200 square foot apartment, 5 miles from downtown, I powered up my laptop, its 4-pound frame my anchor. My fingers flew across the keys. Messaging Hog, my Shadow 9 ally, whose tech skills had saved lives in war. Drone trace, Chicago. Last night I typed, my pulse steady but urgent. Hawk's reply pinged, got a lead. Specs and owner ID incoming. I knew Jamal's youth media lab held the key. That drone, flown by one of his teens, had captured the truth Kane tried to bury. I drove to the lab a mile away, its walls alive with storyboards and dreams Jamal had fueled. Maya, a 17-year-old with Jamal's fire in her eyes, met me at the door, her hug fierce but trembling. He made me believe my stories mattered, she said, her voice cracking. I squeezed her shoulder, seeing her grief mirror mine. They still do. Maya, did you fly that drone? Her nod was a spark, and she led me to a cluttered desk, pulling up 4K footage on a monitor 3 pounds, glowing with brutal clarity. The video showed Jamal's hands raised, Kane's cold aggression, the shot that stole my world. My breath caught, but I stayed focused. Back this up. Maya, 3 drives. Encrypted, she complied, her hand steadying as she saved the truth to 1-pound drives, each a weapon against Kane's lies. But I needed more than footage to dismantle a man like Victor Kane, whose smugness wasn't just panic, it was a mask for a deeper rot, a belief that his badge erased accountability. Using Hawk's encrypted link, I hacked into public records, my heart pounding with the weight of discovery. Kane's file was a litany of cruelty, 12 complaints since 2016, 3 for racial bias, including a 2022 incident where he'd taunted a black teen. You'll learn your place. All were dismissed, buried by a precinct that valued loyalty over justice. Alina Diaz's name appeared on falsified reports, her signature shaky, as if she'd hesitated before signing away her conscience. Then I found a leaked email to pages, 6 ounces of poison from a 2023 diversity audit, ordering officers to target black drivers to balance stop statistics. Kane had circled his copy, adding a note, easy pickings. My rage flared, but I channeled it, encrypting the email alongside the footage, storing them in a safe, 10 pounds of steel guarding my arsenal. Kane wasn't just a rogue cop. He was a predator, his confidence rooted in a system that let him hunt unchecked. I saw it in his eyes that night, not fear, but glee. A man who thrived on power over people like Jamal Diaz, though, was different. Her hesitation, her muttered plea to calm down, hinted at a soul not yet lost, a rookie caught in Kane's orbit. I wondered if she'd break, if she'd see the cost of her silence. Maya, too, was more than a witness. She was Jamal's legacy, her courage a reminder of why he fought for kids. I called her to our apartment, her presence a balm against my loneliness. I'm scared, Ms. Aisha, she admitted, clutching a USB 2 ounces of courage. What if they come for me? I knelt, meeting her eyes. They won't, because we're smarter. Jamel taught you that. Her nod was firm, a spark kindling into flame. My investigation deepened, each discovery a brick in the case against Kane. I tracked down a former officer, Malik Jones, who'd resigned after clashing with Kane over coffee at a diner 1 mile from the precinct. He spoke low, his voice heavy. "Kane's untouchable," he said, stirring his mug, 2 pounds of ceramic. He bragged about teaching lessons to black folks. The brass looked away. Malik handed me a flash drive 1 ounce containing audio from a 2021 training session where Kane laughed. "Some people only respect a hard hand." I added it to my cache, my resolve hardening. But grief ambushed me at Jamal's community center a mile away, where his mural 25 feet of vibrant hope loomed over me. I clutched his keychain, 0.2 ounces. Its metal warm from my grip, and let tears fall. "You gave them wings," I whispered, my voice breaking. A teen Jamal's mentee approached, holding a poem he'd written for him. "He said I could change the world," the boy said, eyes shining. I nodded, swallowing pain. My silence wasn't surrendered, it was strategy, a lesson from Shadow 9 where I'd learned to strike from the shadows. Kane thought he'd won, his lie about Jamal's threat a shield. But I saw his weakness, arrogance, a belief that no one would challenge him, especially not a black woman like me. He didn't know I'd survived ambushes in deserts, carried teammates through fire, buried friends with steady hands. Diaz's hesitation gave me leverage. Her guilt could crack Kane's armor. Maya's footage was my blade, sharp and undeniable. I met her at the lab, her confidence growing. I posted a clip online, blurred no faces, she said, showing me an X post with 10,000 shares. "People are angry." I smiled, pride swelling. "Good, let them feel it." I gave her a burner. "Phone 6 ounces for safety," my protective instincts flaring. "Stay sharp, Maya." She nodded, a partner in this fight. As I drove home 3 miles through Chicago's dawn, I felt Jamal's presence, his voice urging me forward. Kane's face haunted me, his smirk, his certainty, his hate. He wasn't just a man. He was a symptom, a systems enforcer, thriving because no one had dared to expose him. But I dared. My evidence footage, email, audio was a ticking bomb, and I detonated when the time was right. I parked my Jeep's engine cooling and stared at Jamal's keychain, its weight a promise. "We're not done, love," I whispered, my grief a fire, my resolve a fortress. Kane thought my silence was weakness. He'd learn it was a storm, gathering strength, ready to tear his world apart. The Chicago summer pressed against the Cook County courthouse, the air thick at 92 degrees Fahrenheit, but inside, the tension was a fire of its own, burning through every breath in the packed gallery. Aisha Carter walked through the marble halls, my navy blazer 2 pounds of resolve crisp despite the heat, my steps echoing with a purpose forged in Jamal's blood. The courtroom buzzed, X-posts exploding with hashtag justice for Jamal, 3 million shares lighting up screens across the nation. Victor Kane sat at the defense table, his badge gone but his smirk intact, a predator's confidence that made my skin crawl. His attorney, Lawrence Tate, a man with a shark's grin, whispered to him, their arrogance a wall I'd tear down. Elena Diaz, now a witness, sat in the back, her fingers twisting a tissue, her eyes darting as if searching for an escape from the truth she'd helped bury. Maya, my 17-year-old ally, sat beside me, her presence a spark of Jamal's legacy, her courage a reminder of why I fought. I wasn't just Jamal Reed's partner, I was Shadow 9, a black woman who'd survived wars to face this one, and Kane would learn what happens when you underestimate a storm. The judge, a woman with steel-gray hair, called me to the stand, her gavel a sharp crack that silenced the room. I stood, my heart a drum but my face a mask, trained by years of facing threats bigger than Kane's ego. "Miss Carter," Tate began, his voice oily, "you claim Officer Kane acted with bias, yet you stayed calm that night. Why no tears?" I leaned into the microphone, my voice steady, cutting. "Because tears don't stop lies, Mr. Tate. Truth does." The gallery murmured, a ripple of awe, but I kept my eyes on Kane, his smirk faltering for a split second. I reached into my bag 3 pounds and pulled out a USB 2 ounces of dynamite. "This is drone footage from that night," I said, inserting it into the court system. The screen flared, showing 4K clarity. Jamal's hands raised, Kane's unprovoked aggression, the shot that stole my world. Gasps erupted, a juror's hand flying to her mouth. Tate objected. "This is unverified," but the judge overruled, her eyes narrowing. I laid out Kane's filed 12 pages, half a pound detailing 12 complaints, 3 for racial bias, all buried. Then came the leaked email, 6 ounces of proof, exposing the precinct's diversity audit targeting black drivers. Kane's handwritten note, easy pickings, drew a collective hiss from the crowd. Tate tried to pivot, painting me as vengeful, but I was ready. I rolled up my sleeve, revealing a shrapnel scar 4 inches, right forearm, from a 2019 mission in Yemen. "I'm Shadow 9, Delta Force," I said, my voice low but resonant. "I've faced real threat, snipers, ambushes, men with bombs. I never acted without proof." Kane saw Jamal's skin and called it a weapon. The room stilled, Kane's face paling, his fingers gripping the table, 5 pounds of oak unable to steady him. I played a new piece of evidence at 2022 Community Forum recording 3 minutes, from Jamal's Youth Media Lab archive. Kane's voice sneered through the speakers. Some folks only understand a firm hand. Keep em in line. A spectator shouted, "Shame on you." The cry echoing on X with 700,000 retweets. Tate's face reddened, but I wasn't done. I called Maya to the stand, her steps shaky but her eyes fierce. "I filmed that drone," she said, her voice clear. "Mr. Jamal taught me to capture truth. That's what I did." A juror nodded, tears glistening, and I felt pride swell. Maya was Jamal's fire, burning bright. Kane's defense unraveled, his arrogance cracking like cheap glass. Elena Diaz was next, her testimony a tightrope walk. "I signed reports I shouldn't have," she admitted, her voice breaking, tissue shredded in her hands. Kane said it was protocol. I watched her, seeing not just guilt but fear of Kane, of the system that had twisted her. Did Jamal threaten Kane? I asked on cross-examination, my tone gentle but firm. Diaz shook her head, tears falling. No, he was calm. The gallery exhaled, a juror scribbling furiously. Kane's eyes darted to Diaz, a flash of betrayal, and I knew I'd struck a nerve. He wasn't untouchable anymore. His power came from silence, from allies like Diaz who'd looked away. But that silence was breaking, and he felt it. The emotional weight hit me as I held Jamal's keychain 0.2 ounces still warm from my pocket before the jury. "This is all I have left of Jamal Reed," I said, my voice thick but unwavering. "He built hope, taught kids to dream, loved a city that didn't always love him back." Kane saw his skin and ended that. "This isn't just about one man, about a system that let him think he could." A woman in the gallery sobbed, her cry raw, and I felt the room shift, not just in anger but in resolve. I faced Kane directly, my gaze a blade. "You thought my silence meant surrender. It meant I was watching, waiting, building a case you can't outrun." His smirk was gone, his face ashen, sweat beading on his brow, a man realizing the cage was closing. Tate whispered frantically, but Kane shook his head, mute, his confidence a ghost. The judge called for order, but the crowd's energy was electric, a chant of justice. Rising outside, 2 miles from Chicago's Loop, I introduced a new, Elementa petition, 10,000 signatures, 1 pound of paper, from Jamal's community center, demanding an independent review of Kane's precinct. "These are voices you ignored," I told the jury, holding the stack high. "Don't ignore them now." A juror, a black man, nodded, his eyes meeting mine with understanding. Maya squeezed my hand as I sat, her whisper fierce. "You did it, Ms. Aisha." I managed a small smile, but my heart ached. Jamal wasn't here to see this, to see Maya's courage, to see Kane's fall. The verdict came swiftly. Kane was charged with manslaughter, his career ashes. The gallery erupted, cheers and tears mingling, X-posts surging with hashtag Kane convicted, 1 million shares in an hour. Outside, a teen from Jamal's lab held a sign. "Jamal's truth lives." I stood, keychain in my fist, feeling Jamal's presence, his voice urging me forward. Kane was led away, his head bowed, but I knew this wasn't the end. His conviction was one brick in a wall of change. Diaz watched him go, her face a map of regret, and I wondered if she'd find redemption or drown. In her choices, Maya hugged me, her strength a promise of tomorrow. I'd broken Kane's shield, but the system behind him loomed a beast I'd face next. My silence had been a weapon, and now it was a rallying cry, echoing through Chicago's streets, demanding a reckoning for every soul like Jamal. The U.S. Capitol's marble halls echoed with my footsteps, each one a pulse of purpose as I, Aisha Carter, walked toward the Senate chamber. The autumn air outside crisp at 52 degrees Fahrenheit, carrying the weight of a nation's gaze. My black coat 3 pounds swayed as I unrolled a map, 4 feet wide, its 22 red dots marking officer-involved incidents across the U.S., from Seattle to Miami, spanning 4,000 miles of pain. The senators sat, their faces a mix of curiosity and discomfort, but I didn't flinch, my Shadow 9 resolve a shield against their skepticism. "This isn't a plea," I said, my voice steady, broadcast to 12 million viewers. Its echo sharp in the chamber's silence. "It's a warning. These dots aren't numbers, they're lives, like Jamal Reed's, ended by a system that calls prejudice protocol." My words hung heavy, a juror's nod from Chicago's trial flashing in my mind. But this was bigger. Victor Kane's conviction was a spark, and I was here to set a fire. The gallery leaned forward, a senator's pen slipping, and I felt Jamal. Keychain 0.2 ounces in my pocket, his presence urging me to make them see. My testimony wasn't just words, it was a blade, honed by grief and sharpened by truth. I held up a new piece of evidence, a ledger, 2 pounds, compiled by Jamal's Youth Media Lab, documenting 15 precincts' unreported misconduct payouts, totaling $4.2 million. "This is what silence buys," I said, my gaze sweeping the room. "Not justice but corrupts." A senator coughed, another shifted, but I pressed on, pointing to a dot in Atlanta. "Here." A father died reaching for his phone. In Denver, a teen was targeted for his hoodie. In Chicago, my Jamal bled out because Victor Kane saw a black man, not a human. My voice cracked, but I steadied it, drawing on memories of Jamal's poetry slams, his voice lifting kids like Maya to dream. I wasn't here to beg, I was here to indict a system that let Kane thrive, his smirk a symptom of a deeper rot. Back in Chicago, my words ignited a movement. The Department of Justice launched audits on 7 precincts from my map, their findings unearthing $5.1 million in hidden settlements. Grassroots activists, inspired by Maya's ex-post now with 2 million shares, created the Truth Beacon app, 1.5 million downloads tracking police incidents in real time. I proposed a new initiative, Echoes of Truth forums, held in 60 cities. 120,000 attendees sharing stories of racial profiling. Their voices a chorus against silence. In Philadelphia, a mother spoke of her son's arrest for looking suspicious, her tears echoing mine. I attended Chicago's Forum a mile from home, where 2,000 candles, 6 pounds total flickered, each one a life like Jamal's. Maya read a poem she'd written. His truth burns through their lies, her voice strong, drawing applause. I hugged her, pride swelling but grief lingered. Jamal should have been there. His laughter filling the room, Kane's shadow loomed, his conviction a wound he couldn't outrun. I learned he'd tried to flee Chicago, hiding in a motel 50 miles away, but ex-users tracked him, his face plastered across #KaneExposed posts, 1.8 million views. His arrogance, once a shield, now choked him. Former colleagues shunned him, his name, a curse, in precincts. Elena Diaz, though, was a puzzle. She'd resigned after the trial, her testimony a crack in her loyalty to Kane. But I saw her at a forum, standing in the back, her eyes haunted. "I'm sorry," she whispered, approaching me, her voice trembling. I didn't know how deep it went. I didn't forgive her, not yet, but I nodded. "Prove it," I said, handing her a Truth Beacon flyer, 1 ounce. Her hesitation hinted at redemption, a rookie unlearning Kane's poison. But her path was hers to walk. Chicago's streets transformed. My shadow beacon mural 35 feet high, painted by Jamal's teens rising on a south side wall. My silhouette beside a candle, captioned "Light Breaks, Silence, Schools in 25 States" added my case to social studies. 9th grade curricula, teaching kids about systemic bias. A new community project, Jamal's Lens. A mobile media van. 3 Tunstead neighborhoods, training teens to film encounters safely. Maya, its first intern. At a training session, she showed me a clip she'd edited, blending Jamal's poetry with forum voices. 500,000 views online. "This is for him," she said, her eyes fierce. I squeezed her hand, feeling Jamal's spirit, but my heart ached. He'd never see Maya's rise, never hear her voice carry his dream. The forums weren't just events, they were healing, a space where pain became power. In Houston, a veteran shared his profiling story, his voice raw, and I saw myself a soldier betrayed by the country I'd served. I spoke at each one, my keychain, a talisman. Jamal believed in truth. I told a Detroit crowd, 3,000 strong, he died for it. Don't let his silence be yours. A teen approached me after, handing me a drawing, 1 pound of Jamal's mural, his smile alive. "You made us brave," she said, and I swallowed tears, pride and loss entwined. These moments weren't victory, they were fuel, pushing me to confront a system that still shielded Kane's in other cities. Kane's downfall deepened. His name, a warning. A leaked voicemail 1 minute from his motel revealed him begging a union rep for protection, his voice cracking, not with remorse but fear. "She's ruining me," he hissed, meaning me, and I felt no pity, only resolve. Diaz joined a reform group, training officers on de-escalation, her speeches citing Jamal's death, her guilt a shadow she'd carry. I watched her first talk, online, 10,000 views, noting her sincerity but withholding trust. She'd stood by Kane too long. Maya, though, was my anchor, her media van project a beacon where telling stories he'd love, she said, showing me a van logo to pounds, of vinyl. I smiled, but grief surged. Jamal's absence was a wound no mural could heal. The national shift wasn't just policy, it was cultural, spiritual. In Los Angeles, a Truth Beacon rally drew 15,000, their signs reading "Jamal's light shines." I visited, speaking briefly, my voice hoarse from forums. "This isn't my fight alone," I said, holding up the map, now a symbol on X with 5 million shares. A protester, a black father, shouted, "You gave us our voice." And I nodded, tears burning, feeling Jamal's pride. Back home, I stood before the shadow beacon mural, its candle glowing under streetlights. "We're changing it, love," I whispered, keychain warm in my hand. The forum's app and van weren't just tools, they were Jamal's legacy. A fire spreading through a nation too long silent. My testimony's ripples reached beyond courts. Congress debated a transparency bill, citing my map, while universities taught my case in law classes, calling it the Carter Doctrine, truth over silence. I didn't seek fame, only impact, but my image on murals, X posts, rally signs was a mirror for others. At a Chicago vigil, 1,500 candles lit the night. I met a grandmother who'd lost her son to profiling. "You're our beacon," she said, her hug fierce, 3 pounds of warmth. I wept, her pain echoing mine, but resolve hardened. Kane was one man, but the system was a hydra, and I'd face it, for Jamal, for Maya, for her. My silence had become a roar, shaking a nation awake, and I wouldn't stop until every dot on that map was a story told, a life honored, a truth set free. The Chicago winter bit at my fingertips, the air a sharp 38 degrees Fahrenheit as I knelt before Jamal Reed's grave, snow dusting the stone like a quiet promise. My hands, steady despite the cold, placed his folded flag, 2 pounds of honor and his community service award, 1 pound, etched with his name beside the marker, their weight anchoring a life that burned fiercely. We lit the way. "Love," I whispered, my breath visible, my heart heavy with grief softened into resolve. Aisha Carter wasn't just Jamal's partner or a Shadow 9 veteran. I was a black woman who'd turned loss into a beacon, exposing a system that let Victor Kane steal my world. The cemetery, 3 miles from our South Side home, was silent, but Jamal's presence hummed, urging me to carry his truth forward. My fight against racism wasn't over yet, was eternal, and this moment was my pledge to keep it alive. I stood, boots crunching snow, Jamal's keychain 0.2 ounces, warm in my pocket, a lifeline to his memory. Chicago had shifted since Kane's conviction, my congressional testimony, and the Truth Beacon app's rise. The city's pulse felt stirred, its streets alive with signs of a reckoning I'd sparked. I turned down media, office, TV, books, podcasts, choosing Jamal's community center, 2 miles away, where his mural, 35 Feet of Hope, watched over kids he'd inspired. I launched the Jamal Reed Vision Fund, a $75,000 scholarship for teens like Maya, supporting 12 students in media, law, or activism. "This is how we honor him," I told donors, holding Jamal's photo, 6 ounces, his smile radiant from a poetry slam. Malik, a 15-year-old recipient, hugged me, whispering, "You made me believe I can fight, too." My throat tightened, pride and loss entwined, Jamal's spirit alive in Malik's eyes. The Vision Fund was one legacy. Another was Lens of Change, a national network of youth media labs training 5,000 teens to document communities safely, inspired by Maya's drone footage. Maya, now 18, leads Chicago's lab, her confidence aflame. At a workshop, 1 mile from the center, she unveiled a documentary, 20 minutes, 1.2 million views, blending Jamal's poetry with forum stories, ending with a child saying, "Mr. Reed taught us to see." Tears fell as I watched, Maya hugging me. "We're keeping him alive," she said, her voice strong. I handed her a camera, 3 pounds for the lab. "You're unstoppable," I said, feeling Jamal's pride, but his absence cut deep. He'd never see her soar. The nation felt our impact. The Truth Beacon app grew to 6 million users, its data driving a 2026 federal transparency law, citing my map's 22 red dots. Now the Carter Doctrine in law schools. A Chicago billboard 50 feet wide showed our silhouettes, captioned, "Truth shines forever." Congress allocated $10 million for community-led policing reviews, and 30 states taught my case in 10th grade civics, framing racism as systemic. I visited a school, 4 miles from home, where a student asked, "How'd you stay strong?" I held the key can. "Jamal believed in me," I said. "Find your belief." The class clapped, eyes bright, a generation rising unafraid. Kane's name was a ghost, his influence exposed by a DOJ report to Pound showing he'd coerced colleagues, including Diaz, into falsifying reports, his control rooted in fear. He hid in obscurity 100 miles away, his face on reform pamphlets. "This is unchecked power." I saw his online plea, eyes hollow, and felt no pity, only resolve. Kane was a symptom, not the disease. Alina Diaz sought redemption, leading rookie cop workshops, her talks raw. I attended one 3 miles from the precinct, hearing her cite Jamal, her voice trembling. 15,000 viewers online. I sent a note, 1 ounce, keep proving it. Her reply, "I will," showed a soul fighting to heal. Maya's documentary premiered at a festival 1 mile from downtown, drawing 3,000. Her new project, Jamal's Voice, a podcast network, with 500,000 listeners, amplified forum stories. Maya, its youth host, at the premiere, she dedicated it to me. "Ms. Aisha showed silence is strength," she said, echoing Jamal. The crowd cheered, but I wept, clutching his award, 1 pound, his absence a void. A grandmother hugged me, 3 pounds of warmth. "You're our light," she said, her words a nation's echo. A new DOJ task force investigated 10 precincts, uncovering $6.3 million in payouts, while #JamALS legacy posts, 7 million shares, showed murals in 20 cities, each 30 feet. Reflecting on my journey, I saw a path carved through pain. I'd learned silence isn't weakness, it's a weapon, honed by my Shadow 9 discipline, wielded to expose Kane's hate and the system's complicity. Jamal taught me love is a fight, his belief in kids like Maya fueling my resolve. I learned truth doesn't need applause, it needs persistence, like the forums, app, and labs that grew from our loss. Racism's roots run deep, but I learned every voice, like Moloch's or the grandmother's, chips away at it. My military background gave me strategy, but Jamal's heart gave me purpose. The public's reaction ex post's murals showed me collective anger can shift tides, but only if channeled with care. I stood at Jamal's grave again, 1 mile from the center, placing Moloch's poem 2 ounces, Your light breaks their dark. We did it, I whispered, snow falling. A girl, 10, approached, her sneakers soft. Are you the lady who made them listen? She asked, eyes wide. I knelt, brushing snow from her coat. 2 pounds. I'm Aisha, who made sure truth lives, I said. She held a drawing 1 pound of our mural. I'll tell his story, she promised. I nodded, tears warm, seeing Jamal in her spark. As I walked away, 3 miles to our apartment, I held the keychain, a promise. If you faced racial bias, police misconduct, with a past like mine and a public watching, how would you fight for the best outcome? I learned it's not one battle, it's a legacy, built voice by voice, until truth shines for all.